And I said, I want to win the league, but I want to win it better.
There are few moments in football that manage to transcend the sport itself, and even fewer that achieve this through the medium of a 25-minute television interview. Yet, half a century ago, on the 12th of September 1974, Yorkshire Television's calendar programme did just that. It was a meeting of two minds, two egos, and perhaps most importantly, two irreconcilable footballing philosophies.
We've been through the Leeds machine today, came out of it quite well.
The interview between Brian Clough and Don Revie was less a conversation and more a clash, a verbal prize fight aired live to an audience that could scarcely believe what it was seeing. What happened on that fateful evening and in the 44 days that preceded it?
Oh, I didn't realise it at all. I was always convinced, right up until tonight, that it was going to work out. It was inevitable.
Remains one of the most compelling narratives in the history of English football. Clough and Revie's confrontation was not simply about the game, but also about identity, pride, and the bruising reality of leadership at the top of the sport. At its core, it was about two men who represented everything the other could never be.
Every time, whether he's going to buy, whether he's going to have team selection, what he's going to stand or fall by what he says and what he does. And Brian decided to go in the market. Whether it was unsettling to the players, I don't know.
To understand how this moment came to be, we must first look back, not just to Clough's doomed tenure at Leeds United, but to the legacies these two figures carried into the studio that night. On one side was Revie, the architect of Leeds United's transformation from a middling club to a powerhouse of English football. On the other was Clough, the self-proclaimed saviour of football's moral compass, a man as uncompromising as he was charismatic.
Oh, you are a bloody disgrace! Hey, Buzz! For missing the target from there, you want bloody shooting! Oh, it's crap! Oh, it's bloody rubbish! It's rubbish!
Their confrontation would lay bare the tension between those two legacies. Don Revie's story is, at first glance, one of triumph. Appointed manager of Leeds United in 1961, he inherited a team that was struggling to stay relevant in the second division of English football. Over the next 13 years, Revie turned the club into a dominant force. Under his leadership, Leeds won 2 league titles, the FA Cup, the League Cup, and 2 Intercities Fairs Cups. Revie's Leeds were disciplined, methodical, and undeniably effective. Yet for all their success, Leeds under Revie also garnered a reputation for being, shall we say, less than gentlemanly.
And that looked very much like a right hook by Johnny Giles.
We came out of the second division, we scrambled a lot and we played scrambly football. Very tenacious, very resilient in what we're doing, and at times too naughty for our own good.
Critics accused them of bending, if not outright breaking, the unwritten rules of sportsmanship. Opponents decried their physicality, their penchant for time wasting, and their ability to exploit referees' blind spots. It was this aspect of Leeds United that Brian Clough would later seize upon, calling for them to be relegated on account of their disciplinary record. Revie, for his part, was unbothered by the criticisms, at least outwardly. To his fans and players, he was a father figure, a man who believed in meticulous preparation and unshakable loyalty. He built his Leeds squad with the same care and precision that a jeweller might reserve for crafting a diamond necklace, and his players repaid that faith with trophies.
Revie's team had finally won the FA Cup.
So when Revie left Leeds in 1974 to manage the England national team, he did so as a local hero. If Revie was the meticulous builder, Brian Clough was the charismatic showman. By 1974, Clough had already made his name as one of the brightest managerial talents in English football. His success with Derby County, whom he had guided from the second division to the first and then to a league title, was nothing short of miraculous. But Clough's genius came with an edge. He was outspoken, opinionated, and never afraid to ruffle feathers. Where Revie saw football as a calculated game of chess, Clough saw it as a stage for artistry and flair. He believed the game should be played with style, and he had no time for what he perceived as the cynicism of Revie's Leeds. His appointment as Revie's successor was, in hindsight, a recipe for disaster. From the moment Clough walked through the doors of Elland Road, it was clear that he was not interested in building on Revie's legacy. Instead, he seemed determined to tear it down. Clough's infamous first meeting with the Leeds squad set the tone. You can throw all your medals in the bin because they were not won fairly.
Well, I might as well tell you now. You lot may all be internationals,
and have won all the domestic honours there are to win under Don Revie. But as far as I'm concerned, the first thing you can do for me is to chuck all your medals and all your caps and all your pots and all your pans into the biggest flipping dustbin you can find, because you've never won any of them fairly. You've done it all by blooming cheating.
It was a line that might have worked as a motivational tool had it come from a man with years of goodwill built up among the players. Coming from Clough, who was effectively a stranger, it landed like a slap in the face. The players never warmed to him, and neither did the fans. Heidi Haig, a lifelong Leeds supporter, summed up the mood at the time. The general feeling around all the fans was no one wanted him to be there. On the pitch, the results were abysmal. Leeds won just one of their first 6 matches under Clough, and the harmony that had defined Revie's reign was replaced by acrimony. By the time Clough was sacked, after just 7 weeks in charge, it was almost a relief for all involved. Yet even in defeat, Clough was defiant. "I think it's a very sad day for Leeds and a very sad day for football," he told reporters. It was classic Clough, part self-pity, part moral grandstanding, and entirely unforgettable.
There was unhappiness because you'd gone an unsigned contract.
No.
The idea for the interview came from Graham Ironside, the news editor of Yorkshire Television's Calendar programme. Ironside saw an opportunity to bring together 2 men who had been at the centre of one of football's most dramatic stories. It was a bold idea, and one that required a bit of persuasion and financial incentives. Both Clough and Revie were paid £400 for their appearances, with Clough also receiving a pack of cigarettes as a sweetener. The setup was deliberately intimate. Clough and Revie were seated so close to each other that their knees might have touched if either had leaned forward. Austin Mitchell, the presenter, was tasked with navigating the stormy waters between the two. It was a role that required equal parts diplomacy and courage.
And I also believe a very sad one from Leeds Football Club's angle and from the Leeds City.
What followed was not so much an interview as a duel. Clough came out swinging, accusing Revie's Leeds of playing ugly football and relying on gamesmanship. "I want to win the league," Clough told Revie, "but I want to win it better."
And I said, I want to win the league, but I want to win it better. Now, there is no other reply to that question.
Revie, for his part, defended his record with a calm that sometimes bordered on disdain. Yet, there were moments when the hurt broke through, particularly when Clough questioned the integrity of Revie's achievements. Mitchell's role was crucial. He kept the conversation moving, never allowing it to descend into chaos, but also resisting the temptation to smooth over the cracks. The result was a piece of television that felt raw and unfiltered, a rarity even in the 1970s. The interview was an immediate sensation. The Daily Express published the full transcript the following day, and it became a topic of conversation in pubs, offices, and football grounds across the country. It also marked a turning point in how football was covered by the media. For the first time, the public saw not just the managers, but the human beings behind the titles. In the years that followed, the interview would take on an almost mythic quality. It inspired David Peace's novel, The Damned United, which in turn became a critically acclaimed film. Clips from the interview have been viewed millions of times online, and it remains a touchstone for anyone interested in the history of football or television. Looking back, it's hard to say who won the interview, if such a thing is even possible. Clough came across as brash and wounded, a man still reeling from his professional humiliation. Revie, meanwhile, seemed defensive and slightly shaken, as though Clough's criticisms had touched a nerve he hadn't known was exposed. What is clear is that the interview captured something rare: the raw, unvarnished truth of 2 men grappling with their legacies in real time. For Clough, it was an opportunity to reclaim some of his dignity, even as he lashed out at the institution that had rejected him. For Revie, it was a chance to defend his achievements, though one suspects he might have preferred to do so under less combative circumstances. Ultimately, the Goodbye Mr. Clough interview was not just about football. It was about pride, ambition, and the clash of 2 men who represented everything the other despised. 50 years on, it remains a testament to the power of live television and a reminder that sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones we don't script.